Well, if you've been with us these last many weeks of Advent, you know that we've been talking about regifting. And what we mean by that is how we take all of God's good gifts and how we take those in and then share them out with the world around us. And it's been a gratifying journey. We've talked about how we can receive God's comfort and God's forgiveness, how we can receive God's love, how we can take the good news and share that with others, however we view the good news. This morning, we had an interesting exercise where those who were here in worship received a little gift. And with that gift, they take it and they're supposed to share that with others. If you weren't here, you might want to ask a neighbor about that. You might feel like you wish you were here. It was a $20 bill. We wanted to encourage everyone to think about how good it feels when we can receive something and then know that we can give it. Tonight, we are at the apex of what it is to regift. We're celebrating Jesus who's come into the world. We think about Jesus as the one, like our candle lighting liturgy said, as the one who is Emmanuel, God with us. But not only just God with us, God for us, and God in us. God was strong enough to be vulnerable here with us. I heard a story a while back. It was about a woman named Elsa and her son Daniel. Daniel was 18 years old, high school student, loved by his classmates, his teammates, the pride and joy of his mother, Elsa. He worked hard in school. He also had to work after school. His mom thought, that he would be the first one in his family who would go on to college and graduate college and then be able to do all those wonderful things that college graduates are able to do. Well, Daniel, one day, after he had woken up early, gone to school, gone to football practice, then gone to his part-time job. Police don't know what happened. But he was involved in a single car accident, horrific. He was rushed to the hospital. His mom, of course, also rushed to the hospital. And when she arrived, the doctors told her that, Elsa, it looks like Daniel's body is okay. It's strong. But we're not picking up cognitive brain waves. Well, Elsa would not leave his bedside. She held vigil for a week. And Daniel's friends and his classmates and his teammates and his coaches and teachers all came and they shared time with him. The people from church, they gathered around him. They prayed with him. They prayed for him. But after a week's time, nothing had changed. And so a very kind-hearted doctor came to Elsa, and the doctor said, Elsa, we have many options here. I would recommend the option that is not easy, but it may be best for Daniel, and that is that we remove him from life support. Well, this didn't come as a shock to Elsa. She could read the writing on the wall. She knew that this kind of question might be coming. And even though it was the hardest thing she ever had to do, she said, okay, that's what is best. This kind-hearted doctor went on to explain that, have you ever talked to Daniel? Did you ever talk to him? Or did you ever think about if he was ever in a situation like this, if he would be willing, if you would be willing to share his body with others who need it? And she said, yeah. As a matter of fact, just a few months ago, we heard a story on the radio about a young woman who needed an organ transplant, and she was able to receive that organ transplant, and she went on and she's living a vital and happy life. And so she said, yes, that's what I would like, and I think that's what Daniel would like too. And so 6 families were able to benefit from Daniel's gifts. fast forward about a year and a half from there. Elsa still isn't sleeping well at night. She's still racked by waves of grief that pound her for days and weeks. It's recommended by a friend of her that, maybe one of the things you could do, I wonder if you could be in touch with some of those families who Daniel was able to help. And so she went to the doctor, and she said, "Now, I don't know if you can do this, but could you give me the numbers for these folks so I can be in touch with them?" Well, the doctor said, "Well, that's not how we do it, but I'll tell you what, I can be in touch with them, and they would then have the option of being in touch with you." And would you believe that all 6 families were then in touch with Elsa? All 6 families replied to her, and she put together this photo album that went all the way from when he was a baby up through the final days and weeks of his life. And she went one by one, and she visited with each of these families, sharing this photo album, taking his ball cap from his baseball team and his football jerseys. And she shared that with him. And this was bringing her some measure of relief so that they could at least know who he was, why he was so important to her and to his community. And everybody was grateful that she made that visit. Well, there was one last family. Elsa and Daniel had lived in San Antonio, Texas. And there was one last family, but they lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So this was the visit that was done last. There was a young man who had a virus attack his heart. And the virus damaged his heart so severely that if he had not had a heart transplant, he would have died. The young man was married, and he had 3 little girls. Well, Elsa was making arrangements to visit with this family, and they said, "Elsa, you must stay at our house when you come to Albuquerque. You have to stay with us." And she thought, "No, I don't know if I can do that. I don't want to put them out." And they insisted, and so she finally agreed that she would stay with them in their house. And she came to their house, and they had the most beautiful visit that you can imagine. And Elsa found that not only was she able to share the photo album and the football jerseys and the baseball cap and all of those good things, she was able to cook some of Daniel's favorite food for them. And everybody just had a fantastic time. Well, at the end of this time, Elsa said she was thinking, she had one more request. And she was a little nervous about making this request. It seemed a little personal, a little intimate. But as they were getting in the car, as this young man was going to take her back to the airport, she said, "Now, you can say no to this, but I just have one last thing that I'd like to ask you." She said, "Would it be okay if I put my ear to your chest and heard Daniel's heart beating one last time?" Well, he said, "Of course." And he opened his arms wide and he held her close. And her ear was right up against his chest. And the tears were flowing down her face. And she opened her eyes and she said, "It's strong. It is beating so strong." Friends, I wonder, God with us, God for us, God within us. Do we hear God's heart beating in those next to us? Beating from within our very chests. That is why we are here tonight, celebrating Christ once again. God, Emmanuel, God with us, God for us, God within us. Thanks be to God.